It gives me so much pleasure to introduce the latest member of the 5-Star Club, Austin O'Connor. Welcome back to the show. It is a Connolly's Red Mill special. How does it feel being a 5-star winner? Has it sunk in yet?
Yeah, I think over time, I mean, it was obviously very, very exciting at the time, but a bit of a whirlwind. And as we're going into the winter and various things are happening, it's becoming more of a reality. And yeah, it's great.
But life also totally goes on as normal, I imagine, as well. The kids go to school, the 3-year-olds need riding, etc., etc.
Yeah, very, very much so. It's literally from 8 o'clock this morning, putting rollers and long reining and doing all sorts of things to a heap of 3-year-olds. So it's very much back to reality.
Hopefully the 5-star winners in 10 years' time. There you
go. You're hoping there's one of them, aren't you? Colorado Blue was in this position one time, and and there's a few nice ones amongst them. So the only problem is I'm going to be getting really quite old then, aren't I? But maybe one for somebody else.
No, Austin. Keep going. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. Let's talk about Maryland at the start of the show, because quite honestly, I'm sure the listeners are dying to know as well. I am very much looking forward to reliving it with you. First of all, the plan to go to Maryland. Obviously, plan A was Burghley, which I think we'll talk about a little bit later on. But why Maryland? Did you think about Poe? He's been to Poe before. What was the thought process? Because obviously that's a big old commitment, big old flight, quite a lot of investment from you guys as well to be able to take him out there. So where did that idea come from, and how did it come about?
Yeah, it to be perfectly honest, was obviously never on the agenda. We never looked beyond Burghley. But whilst at Burghley, Eric Devander and Tim Gardner, who's a member of the organising committee at Maryland, slightly tongue-in-cheek, knew I was quite disappointed after the dressage, after he got bitten and he shook his head and so on. Slightly tongue-in-cheek says, this Maryland is made for you and this horse, why don't you come? So that's what set the seed. And, I was a fairly quiet boy for a few days, and then I suddenly thought, maybe it's not the worst idea in the world. So it went from there.
How tough is it to come back from, everybody in horses well-versed in being resilient, but when you have an aim and a goal, and actually having decided to go to Burghley over the Europeans, how tough is it to pick yourself up? And mentally, how do you manage that yourself?
Yeah, I had no appreciation how tough it was. I mean, look, let's be perfectly honest. I went into Burghley as one of the favourites, and I fell flat on my face very, very quickly. And without sounding overconfident, I was confident, and I was going to Burghley to have a real shot. And as I say, that came to a very quick halt. Yeah, and it was for a few days it was. No matter how tough I might look from the outside, it was pretty tough, and naturally then you're making it tough on everybody else. And as I say, then Maryland kind of kicked our backsides into gear, and we had to, I had to cut myself on, get refocused, and that was, I suppose, Maryland gave us the aim of Maryland gave us a real lift. But yeah, I think a regular Burghley or a regular competition, the wheels fall off or things don't go right, you get over it, because we've had enough of that. But when it's a competition at the at the level of Burghley, and it's something you've always wanted to win, really. And there's no reason why I shouldn't have been competitive. But as I say, when it went very wrong, it was a pretty hard thing to swallow, to be perfectly honest.
How much does Burghley mean? Because some of these 5 stars, you sort of say a regular event as such, but actually Burghley sounds like it's something pretty special for you.
Yeah, look, Maryland was absolutely amazing, and it was, the best in the way it's worked out, the best one I could have won. But look, honestly, we've all grown up with Badminton and Burghley. They're the two that we've always dreamt about going to, dreamt about winning. It's on our doorstep. Historically, they're the two big ones, and they're the ones you really, really want.
Let's go to that build up to Maryland, and I guess picking yourself up post Burghley, because sometimes I'm a firm believer things happen for a reason, and actually the Burghley campaign hadn't got off to the best start with a fly in his ear, etc. And actually you almost think, do you know what, the stars weren't aligned that weekend, it wasn't meant to be. You dust yourselves off and you go again. So how did your preparation in the weeks just before Maryland feel any different? Did it feel any different to building up to even say Badminton this spring?
Well, again, to be perfectly honest, it didn't end up perfect. It wasn't smooth. We're not big blood people, but for some reason or another, I took some bloods the week after Burley, maybe looking for some sort of a justification in my own head, whatever. And with, going to Maryland, I wanted no stone unturned. So the first bit of information was there was a little bit of repairing. Things weren't quite as rosy as we thought, which may not have contributed to the whole Burley scenario. I don't know. Anyway, between myself and Charlie Schneider here at Donington Grove, we got him very much back on track, and thank God we did take those bloods, and things weren't A1. But by the time we got on the plane, we were 100% confident everything was back to where we wanted.
He's good with the travel. He went out to Tokyo, and so had done extensive travel heading out there previously. But actually, there adds an extra dimension, doesn't there, traveling that far for a 5-star? So what was the week's preparation like heading out to Maryland? And actually, you would end up there a few days early than you would at a Badminton or a Burley. Was that nice?
I think it's really nice. I think, mentally for myself and for the horse, at the end of the day, they're basically, we don't know the ins and outs of equine acclimatization, but they're there for a week. They're in quarantine for 48 hours. They have an easy time. Of course, that needs management because you're suddenly going from full work to take it all back. But, generally speaking, horses seem to cope really well with it and actually enjoy it. He came out of Maryland probably the best he's come out of any 5-star. To be honest, badminton took its toll, not soundness wise, but you just knew that he was mentally, it was hard work. Whereas when he came off the lorry to go to Maryland, if he said we're going to Poe at the weekend, he gave you the impression. Crack on, yeah. But yeah, as you say, we were lucky that we had the experience of flying him and going through the whole palaver of going to Tokyo. So it was never a major concern. And then, Fran Denning, his groom, was with him every step of the way. So that fills you with confidence, and she knows him and she knows how to manage him, basically.
What was your first impression of Maryland?
As a venue, as a site?
Yeah, very different to some of the others, I imagine.
Yeah, very different. Obviously, comparing to Badminton and Burley, it's low key, but it's it's just such a nice feel. It's a beautiful part of the world, Cecil County in general. The first impression was the people of Maryland couldn't do enough for you. You felt welcome, you were looked after. Anything any of us wanted, anything the horse needed, we were treated like royalty, and there was that feel good factor from the get-go, really.
And in terms of your team out there, Amy, your wife, was out there for the week, and you had Fran with you as well. Did anybody else head out for the duration?
Yeah, there's a good friend of mine who comes to most of the big ones. Eugene McKenna, he came out, and Tracy Robinson came out with us. So that was, again, unbelievable support. And I walked a cross-country course with Nick Turner, who I've known for years. He was pretty solid in that department. And again, we just, we had who we wanted, and we worked with who we wanted to work with. And there was just a great feeling from the whole way through.
So what about the dressage, first of all? First phase, he scored a 33.7. He is very much a horse that comes into his own on cross-country day. So what were your thoughts? Dressage was done and dusted. How did you feel at that time?
You're always looking for a little bit better. I weighed it up. There was no point in being particularly disappointed. I looked at the field. I knew we were still in a podium position. If everything worked out, I'd sort of done my calculations and said, right, well, there's 2 there that will probably end up ahead of me. But if everything goes right for me, and I would have taken the same, if I was a couple of marks better, it would have been the same scenario, really. So all in all, we were pretty satisfied. It's always an element of frustration, no matter what happens. But I was first in. Wouldn't have a dressage reputation as it's going to hit the lights anyway. It's
always tough being first down the centre line as well. It's a bit different.
And especially for the likes of me, there's no getting away from it. But it is what it is, and it was what it was. And as I say, we didn't lose too much sleep after the dressage phase.
Cross country then. Ian Stark, cross country course designer over in Maryland. I'm sure you've jumped plenty of Ian Stark tracks over the years, even at Tassels, Bram and places like that. Maryland over the last couple of years very much been finding its feet as a 5-star, and the time, particularly last year, was pretty straightforward. It would be said looking back. How did it feel when you walked it, and how you've walked it a good number of 5-star tracks in your career, a good number this year as well. So how did it compare, and what was your first impression of it? Was it as tough as ever? Because everybody seemed to be feeling quite nervous pre-cross country day.
Yeah, I mean, there was a couple of fences I'd never seen as big in my life, to be honest. And I was going, oh my God, I'm not so sure how jumpable these are, which was a great testament to a designer in this era, really, that he can still have that effect on us. No, I was delighted. I mean, the footing, the ground was great, which, you know, was nice. It was nice for my horse after Badminton. I didn't want to go through a second one of hardship. But yeah, I mean, we none of us, you know, I suppose we all walk and we all give the vibes. We all keep our cards a little bit close to our chest. But you knew there was a little bit of quietness. And yeah, privately, I was delighted because I said, this is going to take a bit of jumping, and this time isn't going to be simple. You know, I just used some great gallop, but you had a lot of gear changing, a lot of technicality, a lot of big jumping. So yeah, I was pretty confident that it would, you know, if things went for us, it would be in my favour.
I was going to say, to be honest, actually, the more nervous everybody else got, actually, the tougher the track looked, the better it is for you, because you're sat on one of the best cross-country horses in the world, one of the fastest cross-country horses in the world. And actually, that gives you every opportunity to go out and attack it. First out on course, Pathfinder role. Have you been Pathfinder at a big one before?
Not at 5-star level, no.
How did you find it? Did it make you think about things any differently?
No, look, again, I just put myself in a kind of a mental position. It is what it is, and I've got to go out and do what I do, and hopefully make it look a little bit easier than what it actually is, and go from there. But no, look, once you leave the start box, it's you know, you stick to your plan basically. So again, no, I didn't over. Yeah, it wasn't ideal, but you know, at the end of the day, it wasn't a big field, and if you were number 6 or 7 to go, you weren't going to be watching or getting too much feedback anyway. So I think there's no getting away. I was put in that position for a reason. Yeah, I just had to prove them right, really.
It's always interesting because actually sometimes not knowing how it's going to ride is actually a better thing. And you can kind of go out, stick to your plan A, and you're not influenced by anything anybody else has said or think or that you've seen or anything like that. You literally just go and do your thing. Your round on him, I'm sure plenty of other people were watching as to kind of going, right, we want to get a feel for this. We know he's fast. We know he can tackle the big tracks. So this is going to give us a really big indication. How did the round feel from your perspective?
Yeah, I think it was one of those rounds from the get-go, really. You know, well, with him, luckily, a lot of the time you find a real good rhythm. And the first 3 fences actually tells you an awful lot of where you're at. So, you know, I was just jumping out of rhythm. His ears were pricked. I knew he was enjoying it. So that sort of set the tone for the rest of the course, really. I suppose what I mean by that, you know, sometimes you'll, for many reasons, I think a real example was Pretoni last year, where most of us really struggled to get into that rhythm to begin with, and it made it a little bit tough the whole way around. Whereas here it was lovely open galloping fences, and yeah, he found his rhythm, and that just filled me with confidence. Then,
did you enjoy it?
Oh, I loved it. I loved it more when it was over, of course.
That's the thing. Everybody is like, I love it now, but at the time, I'm fascinated by actually if you do get the opportunity to enjoy it when it's happening.
You do, and you know, and at that level, there was still a hell of a lot of people at every fence, and there was a lot of cheering and a lot of name calling, and ultimately, you know, if you're pleasing the crowds and they're shouting the right things at you, it's going well. But no, of course you enjoy it. I say once you get out of that start box and your head is down, yeah, there was particularly there was sort of a sense of achievement when you jumped a lot of the fences and jumped them well, because as I say, yeah, first one out and no one was really sure. I think the interesting thing there was the terrain, really, and which I had to gamble a little bit, but again, I'm lucky. I'm on a good staying quick horse. The terrain is pretty serious. You know, the hills. So yeah, the ground was good. Ground was quick, but to me, it was probably more testing than Burley, actually. Just the distance of the climbs. You know, once you got up to the main water at fence 19 or 20, you know, you had to keep going, but you weren't sure. You know, I wasn't even sure. Well, am I going to have enough horse here? Which I obviously did, because he jumped in over the bounce really well, and So I suppose, and again, not knowing the place, that sort of added another dimension. But as I say, the way he was galloping and travelling, I was pretty confident.
He came home 3 seconds over the time. The time, I think, got adjusted slightly, didn't it, a little bit later on? But ultimately, he was very, very close to that optimum. I certainly was watching from home and I was like, well, if he's not made the time, having gone round like that this is going to be a seriously, seriously tough day at the office. Did you come home and actually think, I've got a chance of climbing up a few more places here? Because
I was in no doubt then, because I know how good he is, and I know the effort, the effort it took. And again, just looking around, you know, I knew it wasn't going to be a walk in the park. I think, was it Mia Farley made the time, and that was a brilliant full thoroughbred, I think. But other than that, I was even surprised one made the time, to be honest. So that, of course, that filled me with confidence, and I couldn't see many going as quick.
What do you do for the rest of cross country day? Because I imagine it actually passed pretty quickly. There weren't many horses to run, and obviously you're dealing with Colorado Blue and making sure Salty's okay and everything else. So actually, did you get a chance to watch the rest of the day?
Yeah, no, I did. I watched a good bit of it and say, but I kind of stay away once I jump off. He's in better hands with Amy and Fran and everybody else, and he's with me anyway. So I just let them at it for an hour or two. So I did watch it, and it was interesting. But watching it was how I anticipated once I'd finished how it was going to ride, to be fair.
When Saturday night came and actually everything sort of quietens down, you get a chance to look at the leaderboard. I think you were 4th overnight, plenty to do on Sunday. So what was the feeling like Saturday night?
No, we just, we enjoyed ourselves. I think in eventing, to a large degree, you've got to sort of live for the moment and then cross the next bridge when you cross the next bridge, really. We'd done as well as we could. Again, a little bit like after the dressage, you're quietly thinking, if it's our day, it could really be our day. Looking at what was around us and quietly weighing it up. But first and foremost, we had to on Sunday we had to do our own job. Jumping day.
I think this is my favourite show jumping round of the entire year, by the way, was your round in Maryland.
I don't know if it was my favourite, but hey.
Take us back to the moments building up to the round and the feeling in the stadium and what was going through your mind at this point.
Wherever you are, you're always desperate to go and jump a clear round, aren't you? We'd given him a jump on Sunday morning and we were really pleased with where he was and how he was feeling and everything. And then, which was great, we just disappeared for a couple of hours and kind of got out of town, forgot about it. And in the warm-up, the atmosphere was electric, which I suppose adds a bit more excitement to it. But, he generally had a good warm-up, and then it's a case of going in the ring and trying to do the best you can, really.
Hannah Subinet went in just before you for the home team and jumped to clear round. I think she had maybe a time penalty or something like that. But actually, the place went wild.
Yeah.
How much did that feed then into your round? And were you surprised by that? Was Salty surprised by it? Or did that help?
I think it helped, really. Sure, I suppose, like we all doing, they're trying to wind up the next competitors. But look, he's a pretty steady horse in his head in that situation. So look, you just of course you hear the excitement and things, but then you just try and blank it out and try and ride the best round you can. Your round, talk us through it. There's one moment that stands out, but which is a bit frustrating. But the round as a rule is probably as good a round as we've jumped, bar one chancy moment. He got into a good rhythm. He was jumping pretty clean, and because obviously there's the time element and so on. And I jumped a triple bar, and it walked a regular 5, and don't worry, I've watched it loads and loads since. And anyway, 5 wasn't there. I think 4.5 was there, and between both of us, we said we're going to take a chance. We're going for this. We take a chance, and I always think you look back at some of the great 5-star victories, and for me, a 5-star victory takes a combination of serious amount of talent, hard work, a little bit of lady luck on the day as well. And there's very few 5-star winning performances where you can go back and there isn't some sort of moment that
actually you can kind of feel like that partnership of horse and rider are making it happen, and that heart and the kind of that was your moment for me. But I actually think it adds to it. I'm sure it's frustrating to watch back, but actually it kind of solidifies the partnership, and actually that you've done it together and you've made it happen. You've made that win together, even when things aren't perfect, because things are rarely perfect in this sport. We all know that.
No, that's the bottom line. And as you rightly say, you know, I've watched plenty of 5-star winners over the years, and there's nearly always a moment somebody can go back to, whether it be cross country or show jumping. And certainly, you know, some of the greats I've seen have, you know, that lucky moment. But you know, you've got to take it. I've jumped a lot of good rounds and had a lot of unnecessary cheap rails, and you could analyse until the cows come home, and there was no reason why you would have had a rail. So, you know, sometimes just get a rub of the green and take it.
Coming through the finish, the celebration, I'm sure those 60-90 seconds that followed actually will stick with you for a long time, because there was a huge amount of emotion that came out. That how was it actually when you cleared that final fence?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, there is massive pressure. You know, at that stage, unless things go really wrong, you know, at that stage, you're definitely on the podium. And that was, as you say, it was a big gamble going to America. So at that stage, you say, yeah, look, I'm on the podium, mission accomplished. Whatever happens after that, happens after that. And, you know, the crowd wound me up. I wound the crowd up. And, you know, I think it's a bit of sport and sports psychology as well, because I had it from Hannah Sue. I was going to transform it onto the next freedom.
I think there's that part, isn't it? We've seen plenty of, was it Andrew Nicholson was jumping in the top few somewhere, William Fox-Pitt was coming in, the crowd were going crazy, and there is always that element of it. But actually it's if you can't get involved in those moments, and it's all very well to just pat your horse and politely salute the crowd and all the rest of it. Yeah. But actually for people involved in the sport, and for those people watching, you want to see how much it means. You want to see actually that it is a big deal, because the amount of hard work and graft that goes into it, the emotion's got to come out somewhere. So I love those moments. Going into the top three then had to show jump. Did you watch? Could you watch?
No.
On the gasp of the crowd.
Yeah, that kind of told us everything, really. You know, obviously I think it was Mia went in and had a couple down, so that was our podium. And sure, look, to be honest, you're quietly hoping after that. But as I said, then, you know, mission was accomplished, really. I think, you know, William jumped a very good round. He had his rail, and so a second. And well, Ollie's just a winning machine, so you kind of accept it, right? I'm second here. He was on an incredible horse, but she's a very young mare. And anyway, he owed me 2 fences because I had 2 in Badminton and moved him up a place. So he repaid me, thankfully.
They came up pretty quick. I have to admit, I was watching her jump. She's generally a pretty good jumper, and I was surprised when she had the first pole, and he had 2 poles in hand, but the second pole came straight after it, and actually he didn't have to wait very long. Had you even dared to hope in those sort of seconds that you heard the gasp?
I didn't even watch Ollie, and I think it probably went over my head. Then I was very aware once he'd had the second rail that we were home and hosed.
To win a 5-star, I know you said sort of in your interview afterwards that the end result of a lifetime's work. I hope it's not the end result. I hope there's plenty more results to come. But sum up what that means, because actually your journey and your story leading to this point, a 5-star win, is a big, big, big tick on your CV.
Well, ultimately there aren't a whole pile of 5 stars in the world, you know. It's very easy to count and name the people that have won 5 stars, you know, and I'm sure, like myself, there's lots of people out there that maybe deserve to win a 5-star, but the reality of it happening is pretty slim, isn't it?
It is. When you said people like you don't win 5 stars, people like you do win. You've kind of proved it here. Yeah. What did you mean by that? Because I think that actually resonated with quite a lot of people.
I suppose, you know, I'd regard myself as look, we've been lucky. We're in the game and we've made a career out of it. But on the bigger stage, I've always felt, well, I'm on the periphery as opposed to the podium. You know, I've been putting rollers and long reining heap of 6-year-old or a load of 3-year-olds this morning. So that's where I come from, anything from breaking, producing, and trying to be as competitive as I can, as opposed to being somebody with a string of 4 and 5 star horses all my life.
Do you think it'll change your mindset moving forwards into next year?
Yeah, I think of course it'll change your mindset, because you are, hopefully it'll fill us with a bit more confidence and believe, but it won't change our business model, so to speak. Ultimately we work with horses, we love horses, and that's, so it won't change things from that element. But yeah, I think going forward it's natural, isn't it? You'll hopefully become a bit more competitive, and a lot of that is through confidence.
First Irish 5-star winner in 58 years. I know it means a lot to the Irish eventing community, but what difference do you think it makes? How important is this?
I can't get over the reception in Ireland, and I think truly, eventing has always been, big in Ireland, but we're a selling nation, and I think really people never saw this day coming. I think so hopefully it's a game changer for owners, supporters, other Irish riders. I think for the entire sport, well, if he can do it, we can do it as a country, and so there's no reason why many others can't achieve the same thing. And so yeah, there was, I think as a nation, we're probably quite a humble nation anyway, and sometimes fail to dream really. But now that dream has become a reality, and hopefully it'll rub on throughout the sector.
There's those wins, aren't there, that actually really get the audience on board, and they capture the imagination of eventing fans and everything else. And I would definitely say your win is 100% among those. This year has also been pretty significant. Podium finish at Badminton, which in itself was a massive achievement for Irish eventing then. A tough old Badminton, actually. Take us back to Badminton and kind of how it unfolded and just how much you learned about Colorado Blue there, because conditions were not straightforward, and actually he was phenomenal, fastest of the day cross country.
Yeah, it was interesting because throughout his career he's literally never run on wet heavy ground. So we were pretty open-minded from the beginning. I thought I'd no hesitation if this lad wasn't enjoying it or travelling well or jumping well. I'd no problem pulling him up, because he proved himself around Badminton. He's proved himself at 5-star level. But again, like a bit like Maryland, for some reason he got into that rhythm. The ground wasn't an effort. So there was no need. I was able to keep going. And yeah, I'd say I learned at Badminton that he could deal with those conditions. But I think you can, you wouldn't want to be going back to those conditions every day. But yeah, I think what I learned about him, he showed his extra bit of class and heart, really. What
is it about him that makes him such a special 5-star horse?
I think it's heart, it's ability, quality. He does have an awful lot of thoroughbred in him, and that is a big, at the 5-star level, thank God, that's still a big part of it. There was talks for years, you don't need that quality or that blood. But thankfully at the top end, it is necessary. But it's his heart and his willingness really is what makes him extra special.
What do you think? You just touched there upon sort of blood at the top level of the sport, and it's such an interesting topic that I'm sure plenty of people have different opinions on. Sam's had this conversation plenty of times on the show. When we were talking about the 3-year-olds a little bit earlier on in the show, and obviously him being at the top level now, is what you love in a horse then, what you loved in a horse then, what you love in a horse now? Has what you're looking for changed at all, or have you stuck very true to your system and your belief of blood and everything else at top level?
No, our mindset, from a business perception, our mindset changed to a degree. Yeah, if I could find the Colorado Blues with the 85% blood, great, but unfortunately they don't really exist any longer. So now we're very much at least blood and type. And yeah, obviously finding as much blood as we possibly can on the page. But we're we're looking for a bit more movement and a bit more flash, and hopefully, you're looking at what you call championship 4-star horses. If they become 5-star horses, great, but I don't think you can start out with a 3-year-old thinking this is a 5-star horse. I think you only find out when you get there, especially with the modern sport horse.
Was there a moment, a sliding doors moment with Colorado Blue that you thought he's a 5-star horse?
Yes, but it was, I think, probably around his first 4-star in Blenheim. As a 10-year-old was when I went, this is unbelievable. That's when I really discovered that I was sat on a machine. And maybe I should have known earlier on, I don't know. He's a big horse. He's a much bigger horse than I give you the impression. So we gave him plenty of time as a kind of 6, 7, 8-year-old to develop and find his way and strengthen. So yeah, we knew he was a good horse, but I think it was his first Blenheim forelong that, I think it was like I didn't move a muscle, and I was a bit embarrassed that he was 35 seconds inside the time, and I was sort of just sitting there like doing nothing. So that was the moment that we thought, yeah, this is unbelievable.
It's always cool when you can go back and pinpoint a particular time. Going into next year, 2024 Paris Olympic Games, middle of the year. What's going through your mind now? Have you given a plan of action?
No, obviously it's the target, to number one, sustain the form we have, and he's got to be fit and healthy. We've both got to be fit and healthy. We've got to get out there. We've got to perform. We're certainly not going to Paris on the back of what we did in 2023. As far as preparation is concerned, whether he'll go to Badminton or not, we're not 100% sure yet. But the plan would be to have a pretty competitive campaign, and yeah, hopefully go there as part of a team with a real shout.
The last few months have been a bit of a whirlwind. I'm sure this season has been a bit of a whirlwind in places. Your two boys are, I want to say, 3 and 5.
That's correct.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Got that good. Glad I got that right. But have they kind of, because they're kids are great levelers, aren't they? At bringing you back down to earth. But have they picked up on the excitement of the last few weeks?
They have, but sure, they forget it within half an hour, which is great.
Go off to watch Paw Patrol again.
Yeah, exactly. Go off to Paw Patrol and trick or treating, and more important things than 5-star events. What
about the rest of the team, actually? Because you've just been over to Ireland. I think there was the Horse Sport Ireland Conference.
Irish Horse Board.
Horse Board Conference. That was on there.
Yeah, so no, that was real fun. I was invited over there and sort of did a big long interview, and yeah, there was sort of 250 people there, and again the reception was great and it seemed to be well received. So yeah, I mean anything like that is great to be involved with, and people just getting a little bit more of the inside story. What
about after that? You actually had a trip around the mill. You went to Connolly's Red Mills and had a trip around the factory, which I have to admit, I've heard various things. We've talked to people about it. Gareth Connolly's been on the show, and it sounds like an unbelievably fascinating how the feed appears.
Yeah, obviously Red Mills have been long-term supporters to me, so it's great to have an Irish company behind us for the past 10 years, and it's great that they're part of this whole journey. But yeah, no, we had a tour of the mill. And I suppose it wasn't a case of I didn't know, but I never really gave it a whole pile of thought. You get your delivery of Red Mills every couple of weeks, and that's that. But everything. It was amazing, from where the corn was stored to the drying and the whole science behind it. I mean, lab after lab, testing after testing. The whole thing is just unbelievable. So now I realise there's a bit more to a bag of cubes than I see.
There absolutely is. They're brilliant at what they do as well. Look, Austin, it has been incredible. We last spoke on the show pre-Badminton last year, and it feels like so much has happened since April. Podium at Badminton, the roller coaster of the summer, and then of course that brilliant victory in Maryland. So look, enjoy all of the celebrations. Thank you for sharing the story with us. It's been a pleasure to have you back on the show.
Thank you very much, Nicole.
Hi, I'm Sparkles Watson, and one of my favourite Carday and Martin products is Dreamcoat. It is a fantastic product that I use all the time at home and at competitions. It makes their coat really gleam, and also it stops them getting rug rubs or any rubs anywhere on their body. It's fantastic and it smells beautiful.